Yeah, basically. Yeah. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the June 15th meeting of the Moscow City Council. I'm so thrilled to have a full group here for our Transportation Commission annual report, among other things. So first item on our agenda, we always recite the Pledge of Allegiance, so please stand if you're able and join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So we have two proclamations, and then we'll get into a little bit of housekeeping. But the first proclamation is National Pollinator Week. So let me just...
My allergies would say that is accurate.
Is it on par? Great, love it. So whereas pollinator species such as birds, bats, bees, and other insects play a vital role in producing crops grown in the United States, ensuring Americans have a variety of fruits, vegetables, and nuts to support a healthy diet, and whereas pollinators provide significant environmental benefits that are necessary for maintaining healthy, diverse ecosystems in towns and cities, and whereas pollinator-friendly communities can benefit local and regional economies through healthier ecosystems, increased vegetable and crop yields, and increased demand for pollinator-friendly plant materials from local growers. And whereas pollination plays a vital role for the trees and plants of our community, enhancing our quality of life and creating recreational and economic development opportunities. And whereas pollinators are essential for healthy, biodiverse ecosystems across public and private lands. And whereas the City of Moscow manages public lands, including parks, public landscaping, greenways, and the wildlife habitat throughout the City of Moscow. Now, therefore, I, Haley Lewis, Mayor for the City of Moscow, do hereby proclaim June 22nd through June 28th, 2026, which is next week, as National Pollinator Week. And as the City of Moscow is a Bee City USA affiliate, urge all citizens to recognize this observance. And I don't know, is David Schott or someone from Parks and Rec?
Yep, David's there.
David, would you like to accept this and share any fun words about our Bee City USA efforts? If you would like to further proclaim.
Mayor Lewis, members of council, I'll be brief. So thank you very much for the proclamation. And so National Pollinator Week is next week. So I just want everybody to be mindful of your pollinators out there. And if you're thinking of planting plants around your house, think pollinator plants, different bloom times. They make great plants. And yeah, let's recognize our pollinators. So thank you.
Thanks, David.
David.
Okay, we will allow applause. Love it. Okay, and our second proclamation is for Juneteenth. Let me make sure. Yep. Whereas on January 1st, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, setting in motion the abolition of slavery in the United States. And whereas it was not until June 19th, 1865, that the announcement was made to those still enslaved in Texas, quote, "The people are informed that in accordance with the proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. And whereas Ida B. Wells taught us the way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them, and the isolated beauty of Idaho carries a distressing history of discrimination that continues to threaten our communities, particularly people of color. And whereas every day we have an opportunity to make our community stronger and more inclusive and shift the trajectory of our state and North Idaho by treating others as we want to be treated, with dignity, respect, and compassion. And whereas equity and equality strengthen communities by ensuring all people have the opportunity to thrive, and addressing barriers encountered by some does not diminish opportunities for others, because equity is not a zero-sum game. And whereas a community commitment to equity, equality, and inclusion must be reflected in our actions as well as our words through continued learning, unlearning, and sincere engagement with one another. And whereas building an inclusive community requires accountability and mutual respect, including a willingness to acknowledge our own shortcomings and supporting one another in creating a more welcoming society. And whereas June 19th was officially recognized as a federal holiday in 2021 and serves as both a celebration of Black and African American freedom and an opportunity to affirm our commitment to the continued pursuit of liberty and justice for all Americans in order to form a more perfect union. Now, therefore, I, Haley Lewis, Mayor for the City of Moscow, Idaho, do hereby recognize June 19th, 2026 as Juneteenth in the city, and urge all citizens to recognize this day through reflection, education, and celebration, and to make a commitment to meaningfully engage in the ongoing pursuit of equity for all persons. And sure. And so I have Mario Pyle. I asked if Mario would like to come and accept this proclamation. Thank you for being here, Mario. And I just want to add, a thank you to Mario for also, I'm a white woman, right? I have privilege, and it was important to me to make sure that I was seeking the right word choice. And so I thank Mario for being here and for helping make sure we got this right. So, and I can reiterate our plans for the Friday event. But if there's anything you'd like to share, Mario, thank you for being here. And this copy is for you.
Yes. Thank you all for allowing me to be here. Thank you. Just want to say about Juneteenth, this Friday, we're going to have a celebration. We're partnering with Pullman, and it'll be in the High Street Plaza, downtown Pullman at 5 p.m. to 7. There'll be food, there'll be music, there'll be a drum circle. Please come and celebrate with us on June 19th. Look forward to hopefully seeing many of your faces there. And again, thank you so much, Mayor, for allowing me to be here. Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for being here, Mario.
Thanks, Mario.
Okay, so we have the consent agenda, and then I'm just going to clarify. It makes I didn't really expect applause during proclamations. We don't usually have a full audience when we have proclamations. It's fun to have applause. I will let you know that's probably the last time in this meeting that applause will go ungavelled. Okay, I just need to clarify. So next up, we have the consent agenda. We have 5 items. And I'm sorry we ran out of print copies, but there's 5 items listed on the consent agenda. These are things that we consider routine in nature. They also are reviewed by half of the council body, either the Public Works and Finance committee meeting, or the Administrative Committee meeting. And since we have a full audience, and I'm very excited to use this as a teaching opportunity, council gets split into those 3 on each of those committees rather. And so while we have regular city council meetings at 7 p.m. on the first and third Mondays, on the second and fourth Mondays at 4 p.m., that's when one of those committees meet. And so that's when these items are discussed. These meetings are recorded. They are on our YouTube. They are open to the public. And so oftentimes these have the questions that council may ask relating to these things will have been documented in those committee meetings. So with that,
Madam Mayor,
Sandra.
move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion from Sandra and a second from Bryce. Any further discussion?
Can I just say something, Madam
Sure.
Mayor? To kind of echo what Madam Mayor was saying, for anybody that might be interested in like the weeds of local government and kind of how and why things work the way that they do, both at the Administrative Committee and at the Public Works Committee is where we really dive in. So if it may seem sometimes when you catch city council meetings that we're not really going maybe as in depth as you might like or might wish us to, I can assure you that we definitely did at the admin or public works meetings. So just as a plug for you to stay engaged with local government and kind of how we operate. I know for me being on council, both public works and admin have been tremendous learning opportunities. So just as a plug for more involvement, if that interests you ever.
And the cherry on top, that is also the meeting in which there are items that the body, the 3, can decide if it makes sense for it to get on the full agenda. Some are required to be on the full agenda, some not. And so if you're wondering, for example, I want to say our item number 6 about the Gem State Crimes Against Children Task Force MOU, that item had been also discussed at another committee meeting previously. So I have a motion from Sandra and a second from Bryce. We'll go to the vote. Drew.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Evan.
Aye.
Bryce.
Aye.
And Sage.
Aye.
Thank you. So that brings us to our next item. I don't have any mayoral appointments tonight. I have a couple that you will hopefully have in time for our June. That's what I meant. July 6th meeting. So public comment. So we're going to do, since we have a full audience and we also have a hearing before the body tonight. So we set aside 15 minutes at the beginning of every single meeting. We don't have to run the clock down. Sometimes I wonder if we should all just sit in comfortable silence for the full 15, but I respect our staff's time and my peers' time. So we always set aside 15 minutes for folks to come and discuss it, good, bad, or otherwise. You can tell us about a pothole. You can tell us about graffiti that's bothering you. You can tell us about weeds on a private property. It just may mean that we may not have abatement jurisdiction to handle those things. The items before that you come to bring us cannot be on the agenda before us tonight. They cannot be pending before the Board of Adjustment or pending before planning and zoning, because those things are seen as quasi judicial, partly judicial, right? Because this body also acts as a legislative and judicial body at times, which we will do later tonight. So I have a gavel. I will use it if there are comments that do not fall within that scope. I will also use the gavel. I'm asking for decorum. I know that trust and respect are earned and not given. I don't want to have to use this. I'm just letting you know. I have a gavel that I got at a estate sale that previously said it was from a senior center, and I haven't had to use it much, and I don't want to have to use it, but it's here. So with that, I do have a timer for 3 minutes. If anyone would like to come, we ask that you introduce yourself, your first and last name, and where you reside. You can just tell us if it's in Moscow. You don't have to give us your street address per se, but we'd like to know if you live within city limits or not. So if you'd like to come on up to the microphone, and you'll be addressing council and not the community. So this is a familiar face. I love seeing this. So please introduce yourself and share what's on your mind. And the timer is more for us than it is for you. So
I'll try to keep it in time. I'm pretty concise usually. So my name's Julia Parker. I am a former council member. Sorry, I'm looking at you. And today I ran into a council member, and I was just reminded that it's a difficult job. And so I wanted to come tonight to acknowledge that after 6 months of being off council, I wanted to acknowledge that I recognize that it is not an easy job, and you can feel sometimes like you're in the crossfires, but that's kind of what we sign up for. I know that all of you are thoughtful people, and I appreciate that, and I just wanted to recognize you all. Second thing I wanted to say is, wow, what great proclamations tonight. Like, oh, those were really awesome. Thank you. Thank you to the mayor. And the third thing I wanted to say tonight is that, a couple of weeks ago, I came up at the city council meeting, even though I'm not on city council, in some comments. And I just want to say that affordable housing is super important. There is no silver bullet to affordable housing, or we probably would have done that. I love the idea. Somebody said it's like a silver shotgun. It's many little things that can be done for affordable housing. And I work on affordable housing. I work with Habitat. I've been a volunteer with them for years, and I would love to see some great affordable housing programs for our city, for our state, for our nation. It's not going to be easy to solve that problem. I don't think the city of Moscow can really fix national income inequality, but I do think that it's an important thing to work on, and I just didn't want to have that go unanswered. That I am not anti-affordable housing, or that whatever. And so, yeah, I'm happy to keep working on that issue outside of council, and I encourage us all to work on some really solid solutions. So that's what I have to say tonight.
thanks, Julia.
And I missed you all.
Miss you back.
Thank you, Julia.
And happy birthday.
That's right. Evan did. Evan gets the brownie points. Okay, Mr. Slagboom, tell us who you are, where you live, and what's on your mind.
Hello, everybody. My name is John Slagboom. I think most of you know where I live by now. I've come up here a lot of times and stated my full address, but now that I know I don't have to give my full address, I'll just say I am from Moscow, Idaho, and I'm here to talk about a familiar topic, the East City Park stage. Sorry to everybody who is sick and tired of hearing about that. I'll keep it short. I had a 3-minute long version, but I'm going to keep it down to a 60-second version or less. So I'll go ahead and get started, and I'm going to test out your gavel throwing arm. I'm just kidding, Haley.
Mayor Lewis, but go ahead.
And Mayor Lewis.
Thanks.
You can throw the gavel now.
I won't gavel you for that. It's all
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is John Slagboom. We're here to talk about where I lived. And I'm asking you to pause the East City Park stage contract issuance this July. The stage is set for a $796,000 capital project budget in the fiscal year 27 proposed budget, paid from the same funds that build our roads and sidewalks. This budget cuts the roadway program by more than half. And whatever happens in Boise, How we spend our own capital dollars is your choice. Roads and sidewalks serve every resident. This stage was guided by a handpicked few that the city invited. We have already spent about $91,400 to design it. That money is gone either way. It is not a reason to spend $796,000 more. This community built the first stage over 40 years ago. It has served us well since then. We can bring the community together to find sponsors, volunteers, contractors to rebuild the stage better than it was before. And we can save public dollars in doing that. Please pause the contract. Please be responsible with the public's money. And thank you very much for your service to the city.
Thanks, John.
Sean.
Thank you.
Okay. Come on up, introduce yourself, first and last name, where you live, and what's on your mind.
This is 3 minutes long, so I'm going to do this first, if that's all right. Well, my name's Zach Rissling. I live in Moscow. Your home is where you go to relax, to relieve yourself of the worries of the world. It's your place to be with your loved ones, a place to have your own privacy, a place to feel safe and recuperate. Now, what if your home was being threatened? Idaho has rather potent laws about self-defense and defending one's home. Now, what if that threat comes from underneath? The very land that you have lived on for decades. Hello, members of City Council. This is my first time speaking here for several reasons. I am furious that our representatives are not listening to and protecting our poor constituents. Otherwise, why would they be so eager to turn the other cheek? Outside investors are allowed to buy up whole sections of this town, our homes, our lives. Our neighbors are losing their homes, not because of fires or floods, but because some rich interloper has jacked up the rents 80 to 150% after acquiring the land underneath. Last I checked, low-income housing people have low income. Imagine that. That means that they cannot afford having their rents doubled overnight. But that's exactly what's happening to us. Homes that we have lived in for decades are suddenly at risk. Can you imagine the stress that puts on us? To lose everything through no fault of your own. How many stress-induced heart attacks could have been prevented, or strokes, or even deaths? These unspoken consequences are profound. Economic eviction, that is what's taking place. It's somehow legal here. For why would an outsider care about us when he could easily reap easy pickings from a small town in northern Idaho? What are you doing about the low-income housing crisis in Moscow? Many families are losing everything. How many more? 5, 10, 100, 1,000? Are there any protections from a landlord who closes a trailer park? Are you all comfortable doing nothing to prevent another Syringa? Recently, some hedge fund company has bought up 24 trailer parks in the area. Can you imagine the catastrophe if they decide to close all those parks on a whim? Thousands of people clamoring to find new housing, while also trying to deal with the loss of their homes, many of which cannot be moved. This is an actual death sentence for some of us, and our representatives who are supposed to be protecting us are missing in action. Why? Please tell me why. Thank you.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Introduce yourself and what's on your mind.
I am Haley Noble. I'm the Latah County Historical Society Executive Director and the chairperson of the Moscow America 250 Commission. So I am here to just inform council of some of the things that we are doing as a body and to inform the public as well so they know where to find things. So we have been, as the Latah County Historical Society, the lead organization, and we've been partnering with a group of many other organizations, including the university, the League of Women Voters, the school district, the library district, city, county, and other nonprofits and organizations. And we've been planning commemoration efforts for the semi-quincentennial, which is the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. We began the commemoration last fall with the Smithsonian Voices and Votes exhibit that was at the university. And we've been also having booths at Winterfest and Art Walk, and once a month at the Farmers Market to offer information, pocket constitutions, and kids' activities to those that stop in. And what we have done is built the commemoration into existing structures because none of us have a lot of time to build something from the ground up. So we've incorporated that into street fairs, markets, summer reading program, and more. We opened the Dryland Agriculture at the Moscow Chamber this weekend, and we are also planning to be at Juneteenth. Upcoming, the America 250 Commission is a sponsor for the 4th of July Farmers Market. We will have the Cold Rail Blues Band play. We've got a kids activity and just an opportunity for people to engage. We also have several public programs during the summer reading program, where we've got the public reading of the Declaration of Independence at a Moscow Community Band concert. We're screening the part of the PBS series, The American Revolution, and a Film and Folklife Festival with the Idaho Humanities Council. All of this is available on a community calendar, which is at latahcountyhistoricalsociety.org/America-250, which is also the link that is on the banners that you guys put up. And so this is a great partnership between our organizations, and we appreciate your support. And I hope that you all will attend some of these upcoming things. And thank you very much. Did I say I live in Moscow too?
Thanks,
All right.
Haley. Appreciate it. Okay, we have time for one more person if they'd like to come forward. Hello, introduce yourself, where you live, and what's on your mind. Oops.
My name's Sam Gregor. I live in Moscow. In fact, talking about low-income housing. Not only do we need low-income housing, but we need to look into safe housing. The apartment I live in, the base of the apartment, 6 inches off underneath it. The back steps leans about 20 degrees. If there's inspections for restaurants and stuff, there should be inspections for apartments. These are dwellings, they need to be inspected. Also, the sidewalks going to our parks are crazy. I tried to drive my wheelchair down it and I almost bucked myself out. So working on the sidewalks around here are more important than center entertainment. Let's get able to get to it before we can do something about that. And also the low income around here, we need to work on it. Emergency. There's even students that come to me and say it's crazy, they can't make it. And it's within them quitting and going somewhere else to get their degree. So we're losing out if we don't help in this matter. That's all I got to say.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
And I'll clarify, if it feels, so we often don't respond in the moment to the public commentary, and we do our best to follow up. If you want to leave your email with us, I think I have a handful of emails for the folks who visited with us tonight, but if you want to visit with Jennifer at the end of the meeting, and she can help make sure that we get your contact information in the interest of time, and to make sure we are giving you the most full and accurate answers. We often don't respond in the moment. So thank you for being here. If it feels weird that you stood up and bared your soul to us for 3 minutes, it's not, and we just sit here and say thanks. We do mean thank you. We just want to make sure that we also have time to get you the right answers and a whole answer. So just wanted to speak to that because, again, full audience, we usually have maybe 1 or 2 takers. So it's great to see you all here tonight. So next on our agenda, which I know is what we are all here for, is the Citizen Commission report of the Transportation Commission, and Mike Ray will introduce our chair, Sarah Tucker. Mike, welcome.
Thank you, Your Honor, Council. So I'm here to introduce Sarah Tucker. She's the chair of the Transportation Commission. Sarah moved to Moscow in 2020, is a small business owner, and was the board president of Smart Transit until recently. She also works alongside a few local nonprofits and is happy to share that she doesn't own a car and experiences a range of Moscow's transportation options year-round. So with that, I'd like to welcome Sarah.
Thanks, Mike, and welcome, Sarah.
Cool. Thanks, Mike. Hi, everyone.
Oh.
How's it going?
So good.
Okay. I've been nervous all day, and then I saw this clicker. I'm like, oh, this is so easy. We got this. So now we'll see how we do.
I love it.
All right. So, purpose and duties. I'll let you read it if you're interested. But essentially, the purpose and duty of the Transportation Commission is to provide advice and recommendations to the mayor and council. And that's all with the goal of establishing a system of transportation and general circulation within the city of Moscow. The key bits I want to point out in this statement that you see on the screen is safely and easily with minimum disturbance to adjacent uses. Love that. Keeping on purpose and duties, the purpose of the commission is to make recommendations for policies and programs, and that's with the objective of implementation, which I'll get into in a slide or two. We have a great group of people. I'm pretty newer to the commission, but this group of people I've noticed right away, they're genuinely curious about what is brought before them, and they're really driven to look at each angle so that they can get answers and make a good faith assessment and a good faith recommendation to council. So really collaborative people, really curious and open-minded. So this has been a great group to work with. Contributions and accomplishments. Capital improvement plans have been a big one, and I'll get into that on another slide. Development review, and then input on the Pell studies by the Idaho Transportation Department. That hasn't been so much in the meetings, but that's something that our commission members have been more involved with in the community. So going to those ITD open houses, communicating with people when it's time for public comment, and really just getting information, bringing it back, sharing it with the group so that they can then go forward and make educated decisions when the time comes. All right, capital improvement. You'll see on this, there's some red squares and little notes. Kind of hard to see from here. If you have questions, please find us afterwards. This just kind of shows what's complete, what's been modified, and what's in progress. Again, the purpose of the commission is to bring forward recommendations and ultimately seek implementation of those recommendations. So this is really exciting to see a lot in progress and a lot complete.
And Sarah, if it's okay, I was just going to highlight. So this is an excerpt from our 2014 plan, and there are cost estimates. Those are in 2014 dollars. I was just going to mention. So.
I mean, that's valid, yeah.
And
2014,
and actually, and a lot we are able to do in house. But was just going to note the dates,
That's valid.
which hopefully tees you up for one of your next updates. I'm sorry, Sarah. Go on.
You're good. You're good. I appreciate it. Like I said, I'm one of the newer people on the commission, so a lot of this, being from 2014, predates my time, and I'm still multimodal transit plan is a big one. We're playing catch up.
I love it.
But it's good, and we have new stuff coming, so that's even more exciting. Really quick right here, this is something we helped with recently. This is the Lincoln Street right-of-way vacation. This was a bit of undeveloped land there at the end of Lincoln, just north of E Street. The resident had recommended that we vacate this right-of-way. When it came to the commission, it was pretty good conversation, pretty easy. That land being undeveloped, it's really just shrubbery. So that was an easy one. This Pine View development right-of-way, though, this was I want to say in January. This was under Scott, I believe. So this this also came at the request of the property owner, I believe, and the right of way needed to be vacated prior to like the final plat approval. So this was done like so that they could move forward with their project and be in alignment with like Idaho state statute, basically. 2026 goals and priorities. This is something we were hoping to cover a little more in depth at this month's meeting, but everybody's enjoying the weather and is not in town. So we'll be revisiting this in July, hopefully, but kind of pulling from last cycle's goals and priorities, we're going to continue reviewing and recommending updates to that multimodal transportation plan that we talked about, last updated in 2014. A big part of our work is to lead the public education on alternative forms of transportation. We'll be at Farmers Market on June 27th if you care to chat. And part of that, public education and outreach is also educating ourselves. So coordinating guest speakers from partner agencies and other commissions. But one thing we're going to look at sooner than later, because there's a lot of questions and a lot of interest, would be e-scooters. So if you want to attend our commission meeting and listen, that'd be cool. And then down there at the bottom, we have strengthening collaboration with our other city commissions. The Transportation Commission recently absorbed the Pathways Commission. So now trying to plug in with our fair and affordable housing friends and planning and zoning friends, like, strength in numbers, all that good stuff. I'll stand for questions. I might have Mike step in if there's a question, but otherwise find us at Farmers Market on the 27th.
Thank you, Sarah. Any questions from council? Bryce?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah, and thanks, Mike. And I'm happy to be the council liaison for the Transportation Commission. It's nice to see you all work, and I'm excited for more work this year. I'm curious if you could just talk a little bit more about the relationship with ITD, because I know that we get a lot of questions about traffic flow and various streets and various roads. And one thing that I think we all have probably communicated on is just like what the city has jurisdiction over, what ITD has jurisdiction over, and how that relationship works. So to the extent that you're willing to share and kind of like maybe expand on that a little bit.
Yeah,
since we're
totally.
a full house.
So Idaho Transportation Department is obviously a big part of the work we're doing and what we have to consider. We do have a representative from ITD on our commission, but being a town that is kind of built in between and around highways, that's obviously like a very big partner. Speaking to the actual working relationship and legality of what we do is not something I can do, but if you're super curious, I can trade spots with Mike.
No, and I was just kind of like in reference to like, what roads does Moscow have jurisdiction over as opposed to ITD? Because we get a lot of questions about non-vehicular traffic and safer crossings. And a lot of our responses, unfortunately, are met, well, actually, that's ITD's in charge of that road or that piece of
Right.
motorway.
So like Idaho 8,
Exactly.
95, yeah. Those are definitely under the purview of ITD, but I don't know the details of that relationship.
I'm happy to add for the full house because this is an educational opportunity that I'm not going to let pass us by. The city of Moscow controls 2 traffic signals in Moscow. Everything else we have to work through ITD for timing, for timing requests, for requests about crosswalk signals and how long those signals go. And so collaboration is important. We work closely with our District 2 folks who are based in the Lewiston office, but represent the interests of the entire Idaho Transportation Department. And I'll also say I've been impressed the past few times, or at least when I was the liaison several years ago when I was on council, ITD has done a pretty good job reaching out to offer updates about paving or plans, and also make themselves available. And
I would add to that ITD, their representatives have been like just abundantly helpful and communicative and transparent with us. I feel like when we work together, it's pretty seamless. And I didn't know about the 2 stoplight thing.
only 2.
So
and you can, if
there's
you,
that seamless interaction.
When I come
nobody
after the meeting,
knows.
if you stay all the way through the end of the meeting and you tell me correctly which two they are, I will
Let you hold the gavel.
let you hold the gavel. That's a good one. Yeah.
Right, I'm
so,
on it.
But yeah, it's
Question
Really
sage.
quick.
Sure, sure.
And hopefully this is a softball. Can you define right-of-way vacation since it came up twice?
Yeah, so the right of way is referring to like the city having jurisdiction over it, to my understanding. And to vacate it would be to like, I can show an example. If you look at this bottom photo here, there's that blue rectangle. That was the property that the city was managing, but it was undeveloped. So it was just like shrubbery. When we recommended to you guys to vacate this right of way, what it would have done is split this little blue rectangle in half and give half to one adjoining property owner and half to the other that requested the vacation. So,
which means it comes back on the
am I
tax roll.
totally wrong here?
No, you're
Okay,
close.
I'm correct.
Comes
yeah.
back on the tax roll, and it means the city's no longer holding dibs for it, basically.
Yes. Other questions? Anybody?
Thank you for that.
Thanks.
Any questions? Going once. Scott,
I was just
sure.
gonna say, way better presentation than the previous years.
Full disclosure,
Nice to
Scott was the chair of the
That was me.
Transportation
The last
Commission.
one. I was
That's the
transportation,
inside
so
joke.
I appreciate everything.
I second that.
The transportation comp plan is online, and you did see some red boxes, but there are more that have been checked off than just that one page. The purpose of the updates as well is for funding. So we have to do them so often and have updates very often. That helps us be more competitive for grants. So that's the purpose of what we're going through. But there is a lot more information in there that's available online. Transportation is a great commission if people want to join. With sidewalks,
I have one vacancy with
the-
potentially one interested person, so get in your application.
I'm sure everybody's aware of the e-scooters, the electric bikes, and everything that's zipping around town. That's one of the biggest things I think we talked about in the last year when I was on it, is the education component for people on bikes as well as the traffic. But no, I think transportation's a fun one. I think you did
It's a
great.
really fun one. Yeah.
Cool. Any lingering anything? Okay, groovy. Thank you,
Thanks,
Sarah, for being
guys.
here.
We
Thank you,
did
Mike.
it.
Appreciate it. Okay, item number 5 on our agenda is the appeal of Board of Adjustment decision regarding 513 South Main Street with Mike Ray and Lucy Falsey. And I've got Mike starting us off, and then I've got Lucy on deck, I guess. So,
Your Honor,
welcome.
Council. Yeah, I'm going to provide a brief overview, and then Lucy's going to get into the actual application. So this is the appeal of a conditional use permit application at 513 South Main Street. So tonight, the council is considering an appeal to the denial of a CUP. Within each zoning district, certain uses are specified as permitted by right. So this is administrative approval, and then others are specified as conditionally permitted. So this is kind of planning 101 here. So definition of a conditional use under Moscow City Code is a use permitted in one or more zoning districts as defined by this zoning code, but which, because of characteristics peculiar such as use, or because of the size, technological processes or equipment, or because of the exact location with reference to surroundings, streets and existing improvements, or demands upon public facilities, requires a special degree of control to make uses consistent with and compatible to other existing or permissible uses in the same zoning district or districts. So there's quite a bit of discussion at the hearing regarding religious assembly or churches. So I just wanted to go in a little bit of background of what's referred to as RLUPA, so Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act. It's a federal civil rights law passed by U.S. Congress in 2000. The land use provisions of RLUPA are intended to protect individuals, houses of worship, and other religious institutions from discrimination in zoning and landmarking laws. RLUPA prohibits zoning laws which treat churches or other religious assemblies or institutions on less than equal terms compared with non-religious assemblies or institutions. So if a city permits a secular community hall or theater in a zone, it cannot ban a church from that same zone. Where governments allow secular assembly, they must allow religious assembly. So uses we currently have downtown: religious facilities, community neighborhood centers, civic and social organizations, and theaters. Those are all permitted uses within the central business district, just to be consistent with this law. So any applicant, city representative, or affected person may appeal a final decision of the Board of Adjustment or the Planning and Zoning Commission to council within 10 calendar days. Grounds upon which an appeal to the city council may be made following a final decision of the Board of Adjustment or the Planning and Zoning Commission include the following. First decision violates statutory or constitutional provisions. The second decision exceeds statutory authority. Third decision was made upon unlawful procedure, or the decision was unsupported by substantial evidence in the records or as a whole. And the final decision was arbitrary, capricious, or abuse of discretion. So the appellant has appealed the decision on the cited basis that the decision of the Zoning Board of Adjustment was unsupported by substantial evidence in the records or as a whole. Under city code, an appellant must indicate in the appeal whether they are requesting an oral argument before the council, and the appellant has requested an oral argument in this circumstance. This is not a public hearing. There's no additional public testimony that's permissible. The council has the complete record related to this matter. This includes the written decision, hearing transcript, video recording, meeting materials, and other record documents. So after considering the record, the reasons for the appeal, and oral argument as requested, the council should take one or more of the following actions. Sustain the decision of the board or commission in whole or part. Reverse the decision of the board in whole or in part. Remand the matter in whole or in part to the board with comments and or instructions for further consideration by the board. The council shall remand an appeal in whole or in part for gathering of additional material information and a decision and an accompanying reasoned statement based upon the original and the additional presented evidence where the appellant shows the council by a preponderance of the evidence that there is new material information which was not available or readily discoverable at the time of the final decision, and it is in the public interest to develop such additional material information on the matter. Any public hearing on remand at which additional testimony or evidence is to be admitted shall observe notice and hearing requirements applicable to the original public hearing. So as the council decides this matter, council needs to articulate the rationale and basis for the decision and instruct staff to prepare a written decision for your consideration. Council's decision becomes final upon approval and signing of the written decision, and it can be appealed to district court for judicial review. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Lucy to go over the application.
Thanks, Mike. Welcome, Lucy.
Mike, Council, Your Honor, I'm just going to provide some background on the application up until this point. On March 2nd, the applicant, Rusty Olps, submitted a conditional use permit application to use an existing building to offer music, dance, and fitness classes at an existing building at 513 South Main, which is within the commercial central business zone. On April 27th, at a public hearing properly noticed, the conditional use permit was considered by the Board of Adjustment. At that public hearing, the Board of Adjustment denied the conditional use permit application based that it failed to meet criteria number 2, which we'll go through, but that the character of the proposed use will be in harmony with the neighborhood and surrounding land uses. And this is documented in their written decision of relevant criteria and standards, which they approved on May 20th. Then on May 27th, the applicant, Rusty Olps, submitted an appeal to the Board of Adjustment's decision to the City Council. Mr. Olps' proposal to provide music, fitness, and dance classes at 513 South Main Street within the central business zone, where the music classes were to be up to 4 students and 4 instructors at a time during business hours, with dance and fitness classes up to 12 students at a time during evenings and weekends. Classes were estimated to be an hour in length and were to be open to the public. The smaller music classes were slated to be held in the upstairs mezzanine of the building, while the larger dance and fitness classes were to be in the open floor plan foyer of the ground floor. Occasional performances and competitions were expected on evenings and weekends. 513 South Main is on the west side of Main Street, about half a block north of 6th Street. It's a 5,000 square foot lot, which is completely covered with the building that previously housed Paradise Creek Bicycles. The building and lot have 40 feet of frontage both on South Main Street as well as on the alley to the west, and the building abuts neighboring structures directly. The surrounding land use is a mixture of retail, commercial, office, restaurants, entertainment, churches, which comprises the downtown core. And property to the west of the alley is the south end of the Jackson Street parking lot, which is owned by the city. The building is mostly single story with a partial upstairs mezzanine area. The floor plan was intended to keep, on the left is the downstairs ground level floor plan, which is intended to keep the open floor plan with a couple of restrooms and a kitchen addition, while the upstairs mezzanine was slated to be divided into smaller classroom areas. The applicant proposed waiting areas at both the east and west ends of the building to accommodate pickup and drop off and waiting times. At the time of the applicant's submittal, there were no specific tenants in mind to host these classes, but the applicant did note that the proposed use would not be associated with any educational operations such as elementary schools, secondary schools, colleges, universities, or professional schools. Here's an aerial of the subject site, adjacent land uses, and that south end of the Jackson Street parking lot, which of course has Highway 95 on Jackson Street to the west. The subject site is within the Central Business Zoning District. Within the Moscow Land Use Code, music, fitness, and dance classes are classified as educational services. Within the Central Business Zone, educational services are conditionally permitted if they are not associated with an elementary school, secondary school, college, university, or professional school, which I previously noted this application was not. There are no parking requirements in the Central Business Zone. The building meets zoning requirements for setback height, parking, and access. And the Central Business Zone has a wide range of uses, which if you watched the video, were here, or read the verbatim minutes, they were all there. Here's a zoning map of the immediate area around the subject site, which is highlighted in blue. It is all zoned central business. At the public hearing for the conditional use permit application, there was significant public testimony. 5 citizens submitted written comments, one of which was read into the record. Those were all opposing the application. 40 citizens submitted oral testimony opposing the application. 2 citizens submitted oral testimony of a general nature. The written testimony is available in an attachment to the staff report, and a full transcript of the oral testimony is available in the verbatim minutes starting on page 8 and at minute 22:14 of the public hearing video record. In reviewing Mr. Olp's conditional use permit application, the Board of Adjustment was charged with reviewing the application against the 7 criteria and standards required of conditional use permits. And those are that the proposed use is a conditionally permitted use within the zoning district, that the character of the proposed use will be in harmony with the neighborhood and surrounding land uses, that the proposed use, as approved or as approved with conditions, will not generate nuisances that would be injurious or detrimental to the adjoining properties or the neighborhood, that the location, design, and size of the proposed use will be adequately served by existing streets, services, and facilities, that the proposed use will not endanger the public health or safety, that the proposed use meets all applicable development standards of the zoning code, and that the proposed use will not be in conflict with the comprehensive plan. In considering approval of a conditional use permit, the Board of Adjustment is able to attach conditions to such approval. These may include, but are not limited to, minimizing adverse impacts on other development, controlling the sequence, timing, duration, and maintenance of the development, designating the exact location and nature of the development, requiring the provision for on-site or off-site public facilities or services, requiring more restrictive standards than those generally required, or requiring mitigation of effects of the proposed development upon service delivery. The Board of Adjustment, in reviewing the conditional use permit at the public hearing, denied it based on the finding that it did not meet criteria number 2, that the character of the proposed use will be in harmony with the neighborhood and surrounding land uses. This is in pages 4 and 5 of the reason statement of criteria for the board's decision. Tonight, upon review of Mr. Olp's appeal of the Board of Adjustment's decision, and we touched on this, but we're going to touch on it again. You may sustain the decision of the board in whole or in part. You may reverse the decision of the board in whole or in part. You may remand the matter in whole or in part back to the board with comments and/or instructions for further consideration by the board. This may happen only where the appellant has shown that there is new material information not available or readily discoverable at the time the board made its decision, and that it is in the public interest to develop such additional material. Upon coming to a decision this evening, the council must direct staff to draft a written decision, which includes the relevant and criterion standards of the decision. Thank you.
Love it. Thank you, Lucy. So, and I've got my code cheat sheet to make sure I don't skip any steps here. So, we are able, I'm making sure, or yes, okay, great. So we've had the staff introduction of the appeal, and now we are able to invite our appellant, as he had let us know that he wanted to come and provide oral testimony. So Rusty, if you'd like to come and introduce yourself. I don't think we have a time limit on this, and I think just for my clarification, this is meant to be him providing information to us. I'm not sure if it's meant to be a back and forth, but we'll start with Rusty. Feel free to share your prepared remarks, and then Bill and Mia, keep me honest if I get off track. I'll do my best to follow the code to the T. So welcome, Rusty.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council and staff and public. Some of this is a little bit of a review, but I'd like it read into the record regardless. On April 27th, I applied for a CUP from the Board of Adjustment for sports and recreation instruction and fine arts instruction at 513 South Main Street. The application was denied in a vote, split 4-2. The rationale for this decision was specifically the assertion of relevant criteria and standards number 2, quote, "The character of the proposed use will be in harmony with the neighborhood and surrounding land uses," close quote. My application was found to be not in harmony with the neighborhood and surrounding land use. The rest of the relevant criteria and standards were found to be of limited relevance or completely satisfied by the application. Particularly of note, the application for use was deemed expressly not in conflict with the comprehensive plan, RCS number 7. I'm appealing the decision on mainly 2 criteria and maybe a third note about all the complaints regarding retail. Most prominently and unfortunately, there was significant and I think misplaced hostility of a more religious nature, as embarrassing as that might be. And secondly, that the proposed use is very much in harmony with the neighborhood and surrounding land uses. Firstly, there was tremendous confusion about the use of the building for religious assembly, which led to extensive and bewildering and hostile public testimony, as has been recorded by city staff. Members of the public offered more than an hour of hostile testimony against a church they imagined would be occupying the space and their understanding of the unknown church's beliefs, in spite of the staff's clear instruction that religious assembly was a perfectly legal and irrelevant question. The comments included implied and overt testimony that I was a front for a church, even though I disclosed that a church will likely be a tenant. Contrary to the public testimony, the identity and beliefs of the church that may occupy the space by right are not relevant anyway. And the First Amendment and federal law prohibits the government from considering them. Members of the public also raised concerns about the church's tax exempt status, but I, as the landlord, would pay the same taxes as any other landlord. The public testimony was overtly stated as a consideration by certain members of the BOA, which suggests that the BOA may have been unduly affected by the crowd. Secondly, I want to talk just a minute about the BOA's action not being sustainable on its own merits. The proposed application for 2 categories of instruction is absolutely in harmony with the neighborhood. There are many examples downtown. I counted 19 within a short walk of my space. There are at least 7 locations providing Pilates or yoga instruction. There are 3 locations providing martial arts instruction. Fine arts instruction includes music, painting, theater, and dance, and there are at least 9 locations doing those kinds of things. If my application for these same activities is out of harmony with these existing uses, then what is the difference between me and them? The definition of harmony must be considerate of the land use table's by right uses, which include, among many others, concert halls, sports arenas, dance halls, and fitness centers. Those by right uses ordinarily include instruction. For instance, I could by right open a Pilates center, in theory, though according to the BOA's decision, a class of a dozen people being instructed in Pilates would be out of harmony with the neighborhood. I think the implied distinctions are very subtle and very difficult to sustain. Regarding retail, I don't want to introduce new information, but retail is one more thing among many, including the things I listed, like a fitness center that I can do by right. And I hope to have many tenants over the course of years providing many types of services. Granting my CUP appeal will allow me to introduce much greater commercial life to this central space and its wonderful neighborhood. And so I ask that the council do so. But let me conclude with this observation. Over the last dozen years of my real estate career in Moscow, I have come to expect fair and equitable treatment from city staff, various boards, and the council itself. This situation is an absolute anomaly in my personal experience, which includes passing a complicated PUD all the way through council. I've done lot line divisions and parcelizations. I've rezoned property and I've completed dozens of building permits. I've sought and secured a CUP for educational purposes. So this recent aberration of my experience is far outside the bell curve, and I sincerely look forward to many more years of developing faithfully within Moscow and with Moscow's government at all of her levels. I'm particularly grateful to community development for making development as efficient and friendly as possible over these many years as they put up with my half-baked ideas and loose attention to detail. That much I will confess. Finally, for what it's worth, and on a very personal note, I love our little town. Even the people who don't like me, and there are so many more than I thought. To put money and time behind that sympathy, let me issue a standing offer to anyone who is worried about what I'm doing or who I am. I'll buy you pizza at My Elena, or a burrito from Patty's Kitchen, or some other fine Moscow establishment of your choice. Let's sit down and talk it through. Give me your mind. I will listen to all of your concerns. I'm willing to be pretty transparent about what moves me in work and family, and even in my religious and political persuasions. While the government shouldn't care, anyone else can. You will not be disappointed. You'll find me a Christian fanatic, the kind that wishes the absolute best for everyone in this room, and prays to my Lord Jesus for your blessing and prosperity and our peace together. Thanks for your consideration, council. And are there any questions for me?
Thanks, Rusty. And I found the line buried in Title 4:8-5, the appellant argument. The time allowed for argument is set by the mayor, and I think that turned out great. So thank you for having prepared remarks. So are we allowed to ask questions, Bill? I know there's a tricky thing for us to consider as far as introducing new information, but are we able, if council has questions, to ask?
Yes, the council can ask clarifying questions so long as we're staying within the content of the information that's contained in the record.
Ruby, thank you. Are there questions from council for Rusty? Evan?
Madam Mayor, thank you. Mr. Olps, something that was unclear to me through all this is, as of, and we'll fast forward to today, not April 27th, who owns the building?
513 South Main Street LLC owns the building, of which I am the managing member.
Okay, and that happened since the April 27th meeting?
It was like 2 days later, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Evan. Questions for Rusty before we shift to deliberation? Going once. I'm going twice. Okay, groovy. Thank you, Rusty, for being here. So I'm going to read straight from code. We've got, at the conclusion of arguments, the council will conduct its deliberation. And so we've got on the agenda before us, we've got 3 options for proposed actions. But yes, I invite the council to begin your deliberation, and we'll keep it orderly and civil and kind, because that's who we are. So, Sandra.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Rusty, thank you for coming up and for folks being here tonight. So, I mean, clearly, I think we've all been like pondering this for a while and reading and listening and reading and answering emails and things. And I think one of the things that really pops into my head more than anything is 2 things. And first is the whole idea of harmony. And I think harmony takes a lot of different views. I think what Board of Adjustment went through, listened to it, watched it again. I think there's some valid issues about harmony in the neighborhood. That said, I also think maybe there should be some more deliberation. So I think one thing I would like to throw out to council to ponder and not decide right now, because I think we all have things we want to share and talk about. But I would be in favor of sending this back to the Board of Adjustment to say, I'd like to know from you what the harmony looks like to you. How did you land on that? What does harmony mean? Why did it land on that? I know there were some different viewpoints and some things were talked about. So I would like to send it back there and get more clarification from them before we move one way or the other. Just my thoughts.
I'm scribbling my own notes too. Okay, Ruby, thank you for kicking us off, Sandra. Other deliberation, Evan, sure.
Sure, I'll go forward with a couple of things. First, there is mention of this management of downtown and a lot of Moscow's plans, including the comprehensive plan. It rises as a very important matter for the ambience of the town as a whole. In that is the suggestion that our identity is preserved best with a downtown that emphasizes shopping, dining, drinking, and events. And those sorts of activities are allowed by right, and we want to encourage those because we've embraced that identity and we want our town to be identified that way. And so aspects of land use downtown should, if they're not directly part of that, should embrace that and encourage that sort of activity. And I see that through our strategic plan, our comprehensive plan, and it's almost an undercurrent in a lot of what we do. So that's just the way I see downtown: shopping, dining, drinking, and events, and other things fall below that in importance. And so we see a conditional use permit because we have suggested in our code that some of these other activities need careful deliberation before they are maybe allowed to unduly influence our main emphasis. I make the case that the conditional use permit process allows us to consider whether there are too many dance studios, too many music studios, too many fitness places, because if we, push that to its limit, then we've jeopardized the function of downtown providing those 4 things that I think are to be emphasized. And so anytime somebody says to me that there are already dance studios, we should have more of them, I always want to step back and say, how does that help shopping, dining, drinking, and events? Because that's what keeps the downtown vital. So it's, in some cases, it's the number of those conditionally permitted activities that are something the Board of Adjustment needs to consider. And then I'll have one comment. I served on the Board of Adjustment for 9 years and the Board of Appeals. And I think it's always proper for the Board of Adjustment, with a lack of other evidence, other information, other direction, and that would come through the application, and I think this one is somewhat vague, that they almost have a duty to consider the worst case scenario and to either condition that or prevent it. It's almost an underlying tenet of the reason for requiring something have a conditional use instead of an allowed use. And that's how I want to introduce it. Thank you.
Thanks, Evan. Okay, other comments, deliberation from council? Scott, go for it.
Thank you everybody for being here. I think healthy disagreement makes us stronger, and I appreciate people voicing their opinion in support or against. I think as a town, I mean, we need to have disagreements in a respectful way. I own a small business, and many don't succeed, and I commend anybody that attempts to start a business themselves and put their hard-earned money or livelihood out there. I don't think the government should be picking winners and losers when it comes to viability, and that was something that people talked about. I don't think it's our role to say, how are you going to make money doing that? I think the businesses, if they don't have to make money. But at the same time, they should, if they feel strongly about it, that is not our role to say no in terms of that. I think that, sorry, I have my scribbled notes. I can't read very well. I think some of the talk about using a church as a permitted use, there's a lot of businesses that use churches to subsidize rent because retail is challenging. Businesses are challenging to afford them. And if you're not open and you can find another business to use the space when you're not open and make it so you can make retail and other businesses viable, I think that's a fantastic use of an empty building or time when you're not working. So I think we should be, especially things that are permitted uses, I think those are things that should be encouraged and not discouraged. A lot of the talk in the record was about retail and needing more retail. Driving home from Pullman today, there was about 60 Amazon and big box parking car vans. And it makes it really challenging for local retail to compete with that. And a lot of people who want retail do shop at a big box. And you got to think of it as a cost to it may be cheaper and you save money, but there is a cost to our community. So I just want everybody to be aware of that there is cost for lower prices in that instance. So I'm still have a few more.
You're good.
Sorry, guys. The harmonious, one of the things that they talked about is a harmonious, and I have a hard time with that just because I feel it's very arbitrary in terms of if we asked everybody in this room, we'd probably come up with a lot of different definitions of what harmonious is. And I think that's probably our role to come together. And I think if you ask the 6 of us up here what harmonious would mean, we'd come up with something different. I think a lot of the times harmonious, and I've been on the other side of this, and some of those arbitrary words are used to justify why we don't like a certain group or people or want something there. And I just think that, again, if you look at the businesses that are downtown and elements of the business that they're trying to do in the CUP, I think it really fits in with everything that is downtown. The CUB, I'll go to Evan's comment about, are there too many dance studios? I don't think the government and city council should be picking whether we have too many of anything. I think that for downtown, if there are too many restaurants, I mean, I think that's a market force that will take care of itself or one way or another. I don't think we should be the ones choosing which dance studios, which restaurants, which professional entities should be downtown. I just really think that our role is to set the limits, the rules, and then make decisions on based on that. So, thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Bryce, go for it.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you again for everybody being here tonight to kind of echo some sentiments that have been expressed. And to pick up off of what Scott was saying, I mean, some of you might know, but if you don't, I teach philosophy at the University of Idaho. And one of the joys of teaching philosophy is we work with abstract concepts, right? We work with definitions. We work with trying to figure out how we're all navigating through the world, either similarly or differently. And when this came to us, and as we've dived more in, yeah, the word harmony and harmonious is something that I think is really interesting to focus on here. And as Scott was saying, if you asked all 6 of us up here what we would define as harmony, or if we asked all 200 of you out there what you would define as harmony or harmonious, we're likely to get 200 different answers, right? And so this conversation up here, and especially as we work through what's being presented with us tonight, I mean, it's hard to kind of like decipher what fits and what doesn't with regards to what some might think harmonious is or what might be harmonious within the downtown business area. And so with that, I also echo some of Scott's sentiments that I get nervous trying to put a one-size-fits-all approach with defining that one concept, seeing that we have such a diversity of businesses in the downtown corridor at present, right? Like right next to where this space is an architecture firm, right? And right across from this business is an architecture firm, right? And no shade on architecture firms, like they're doing valuable work. I have not stepped in either. Well, I've stepped in one to go talk to one architect that works at one of those architecture firms, but I haven't stepped foot in the other one. And so in thinking about kind of like what we're thinking about in a harmonious state within downtown, I know that there are all places that many of us frequent regularly. I know that there are places that many of us probably, again, have not stepped foot in for whatever variety of reason for however long it is that we've lived here. So for me to, again, kind of like piggyback on some echoes expressed, I think it's really difficult to kind of understand where maybe the Board of Adjustments was thinking about this word and really focusing on the word harmony here. So either echoing Sandra's sentiments of maybe sending it back down, or if we can kind of come together and kind of figure out what we want to interpret as harmonious is maybe our next step. But those are some of my thoughts at present.
Sage, sure.
Yeah, so thanks everyone for being here, and I'll just kind of piggyback on what's been said. But before I piggyback, I'd just like to ask a couple brief questions of staff, if that's okay. One being to define retail. Do we have a definition of retail as it applies to this?
Mike Ray coming
And I-
back
and
to the
I-
mic.
And sorry, I should speak into the mic more. Thank you, Bryce. The reason I ask this is because of the 40 documented folks that spoke up in opposition in the initial hearing before the Board of Adjustment. That was a primary concern, was that this was not an application for retail. So I'm just curious to get a definition of retail.
So we have a definition for retail sales, which is establishments engaged in retailing merchandise generally without transformation and rendering services incidental to the sale of merchandise.
And the other question I wanted to ask was just about educational classes, because I know in city code and per this application, this is not tied to an educational institution. But as part of the application, this was kind of the educational realm versus the sort of similar but different application of, say, having a fitness center or a dance class, right? Could we just very briefly, for the record, distinguish between those?
It's just in our NIAX classification system. So as long as it's not affiliated with a college or university or kindergarten, elementary, junior high, or high school, typically it falls into all other educational uses and instruction. And there's a lot of uses that are within that. You would just have to look up the NIAX table to have all the index of all those allowed uses.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Mike. And so with those definitions, and just in addition to what everyone else has said, I mean, I am really glad to know that so many people, came to the hearing, spoke their opinion, shared their views. I think this is a matter where, because it's quasi-judicial, we are sticking to the facts, we're sticking to the record, we're in review of the criteria that's before us, right? And primarily in this case, we're here to talk about criteria number 2, which is about whether the use is harmonious or not. I really struggle when it comes to definitions to find a substantive reason based on review of this, to see where there is a lack of harmony or defining this to be non-harmonious as part of the application. And just for some additional insight too, the number of existing entities that provide this service doesn't really impact one way or another that set of criteria, right? And so I kind of ultimately come back to that, and that's kind of guiding my thought process on this. But I also, think the comprehensive plan and consideration is critically important, and I understand Scott's perspective too of trying not to place limitations on sort of someone's business plan and whether a space succeeds or not, right? Letting market forces sort of laissez-faire drive what our downtown looks like. So yeah, those are just some opening thoughts that I have. I'm curious to hear more deliberation from council, but yeah.
Thank you. And I was just going to add for those bookish folks at home. So when we're referencing the land use chart, it falls in Title 4 zoning code, chapter 3, and there's 3 pages with a chart in section 4 that talks through this. And some of them do cite I call it a NAICS code because the acronym soup is just really wearing me down, but the national, the NAICS code is also cited in these if those who want to explore further reading. So thank you, Sage. Drew, would you like to go? We haven't heard from you yet. And then
Thank
we
you.
can go back around for round 2.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you to the public for being here this evening. I'd just like to remind us we do meet every other Monday, and we like to see people. And so we have a full crowd, and it is nice to see engaged citizens. Before I present my thoughts that I've been studying before us tonight, I just like to say that we live in a place where we can disagree. Healthy disagreement is critical to how we function and how we live. And the fact is we don't need to agree more with each other. We need to learn to disagree better with one another. And so despite people's opinions, despite what we think of one another, the fact is we need to sit down and have more conversations amongst one another to understand each other better. Now with that, I've spent most of my professional life. I know my haircut might suggest I've been practicing architecture for a while, but I have not. I'm still young in my career. However, that means that I have been serious as I find myself in the Western United States, and even occasionally Eastern United States, presenting in meetings like this across the country. I will tell you, I sometimes wish I'm on that side of the mic when we have this decision, but this is what I was voted for. Voted to, be here for the city of Moscow, but more importantly, the Constitution. And with that, my findings, I look through these things. I study them with my peers, my colleagues, and I'm grateful for the ability to look at many different jurisdictions across our country. The word harmony, like many of my council members have said, we could, in Bryce's terms, we could philosophize that. I will not be.
Pretty fun.
Disagree. But just kidding.
Disagree better, you
Yeah,
guys.
disagree better. Only kidding. I find what we have before us as the Board of Adjustments has indicated in criteria 2. I see no valid argument to what they have presented. I look around our city. I also work downtown, where I have a business that I manage, and I love the ability that I can go to different areas along our main street. And I like how we live in a free market. I think that's important for us to remember, that we should not be controlling what is happening from a government perspective. So I echo the sentiments of Scott at the end of the bench over there, and have many of the same perspectives. As we look at this, markets change frequently. Buildings that I design for intended uses can change. I think that is a good thing. If there's one thing I've learned in my love and my passion for cities from a professional perspective, during the day, I draw things and manage construction sites. By night, when the bat signal comes up, I'm hearing council. I see through these things the harmony for me in my profession, that government should not be involved in dictating that. The market will do that. Whether I like that or not, that is what I have before here this evening. As we talk about these things, one thing I'd ask, I do think in all areas of our city, we need to imply respect for multiple different lifestyles. And I have concern, but I do appreciate concerned citizens sharing their thoughts. This is what this venue, this is what we are supposed to do, is to express how we feel about certain topics, whether you agree with it or not. But the idea of us coming together and picking apart people's lifestyles, I'll never be a part of that. Whether I agree with that lifestyle, live that lifestyle or not, we have the ability to pursue a life in this country, no matter how I live my life or any other individual does. And the decisions that I make based on this dais are not through the perspective or the apertures of that. And so I'd ask the Board of Adjustments, especially the chair as conducting, to invite them to look through those apertures also. That being said, I have said a lot. I have pontificated, and I'm also curious to hear other council members, but I think I've made my position very clear.
Thanks, Drew. Okay, so we've heard opening-ish initial remarks from everyone. We can still deliberate. Reminder, we have 3 actions before us. I'm not asking anyone to make an action. I'm happy to continue the conversation. But for those who may be just tuning in at home on YouTube, the options before us are to sustain the decision of the board, reverse the decision, or remand the decision. And there are some additional subsections. So just to refresh. Anyone else? Evan, sure.
Just, it's almost repetitive, but it asks us to examine the reason why this activity as proposed is not a permitted use. And maybe the problem lies in our ordinance that says it isn't. But I want to take the position that there's a reason for that. We want it to go before a board, before those sorts of activities are allowed, as opposed to what some of my fellow counselors have said are permitted uses. Right, we're not debating permitted uses, we're debating conditional uses. And when you get an application for allowing a conditional use, I think it needs to be fleshed out pretty significantly so that the board has things that they can, for lack of a better word, condition that so they can act upon. In general, I agree with my fellow counselors, especially Scott and Drew, that maybe this should be a permitted use, but it isn't. It's a conditional use. And testimony was given that suggests that it deserves a higher level of scrutiny. And I also find support for that in our comprehensive plan, in our strategic plans, and in what we have done over the last 30, 40 years for downtown Moscow to make it the way it is. Thank you.
Thanks, Evan. I've got Drew. Okay, Bryce, and then Drew, if you want to follow up.
Yeah, thanks for that, Evan. And one of the quotes that struck me the most in all the testimony presented a couple of months ago, and again, appreciate everybody participating and vocalizing their thoughts on the matter at that meeting, and reaching out to us afterwards and before and all the times. But to Evan's point, the quote that struck me, or a quote that struck me, was the fact, and this is a quote from somebody that presented, was the fact that a conditional use permit is required confirms this does not belong here. Okay. And to build off kind of what Evan was saying, with that quote striking me and me trying to think through how I respond to that sentiment as it relates to that question of harmony. So I'm still referencing criterion 2 here, staying within the parameters of what we're being asked to measure. And I think to what Evan was saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, Evan, but with regards to the decision we make tonight, there is precedent that we're kind of setting in place, right? And either we're setting in place that we need to reaffirm or we need to revisit how we're defining various uses within these various buildings, which would probably not be a bad thing to look at as well. Or, right, we're setting precedent insofar as kind of like how we're trying to define harmony, which, as I've already tried to maintain and establish, I feel like that's really difficult to define harmony. And so I think that we're kind of working with two positions that clearly make this challenging. But I wanted to offer, just as it relates to what Evan was bringing up, that the testimony did not fall flat by any means. And it seemed to kind of echo what you were stating.
And if I may, Madam Mayor.
Sure, Evan.
We do have to be careful that conditional uses being granted are not a precedent. They don't actually and should not affect the next application for a conditional use. So that, just to clarify that a little bit. And Michael Ray might want to speak to that too, about the nature of conditional uses.
Yeah, I mean, that exact statement's in our city code, so certainly.
Okay. Drew, do you have any follow-up that you want to provide? Or we can.
Yeah, I mean, Councilmember Holmes, thank you for that. And I agree with what you're saying. This does not, produce a precedent moving forward. But we do have this is the mechanism that we have to evaluate, and that's what we're doing here tonight, is to make a decision. This is why we have a process put in place. And this is why government exists, as long as you look through it through the proper apertures.
So it's in the record. I know we all don't have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 attachments printed before us right now. Mike, can you just reiterate what is the use, that the specific piece of the use, because we've already established that church is a by right piece in this bill, is allowed by right. What is triggering the CUP? Just again, if we're talking
Fitness, music, and dance instruction.
and the instruction specifically. Okay.
Correct.
Just to reiterate. Okay. Still,
Can I ask a question?
sure.
Sandra, can I ask what maybe you have in mind of like what this would look like by sending it back to BOA? Does that?
Certainly. I think the first thing I would want to know is what were they thinking in terms of harmony? That stood out time and time and time again. And I think that's really, from what I gathered, the big reason they did not want to do this. And so I would like to know what part of harmony. Is it harmony in terms of what's being offered as instruction classes, building uses? Is it a different harmony? I want to know what their harmony issues are, because I feel like I can't answer that until I know what that is, because I can go in a lot of different directions, and I have, and I don't feel good about that. I don't want to just assume I know what they mean. I think that's poor on my part. So I would like to know, what was the harmony? What was the board's usage and vision for harmony for saying no? Because then I will be able to make a better decision if I know what that focus was.
And I was gonna just read the excerpt from the relevant criteria and standards, but I see Bill, is that helpful, or what would you like to
So
share?
just going to clarify a couple things on remand. So by city code, the council is to remand where the appellant shows to the council by a preponderance of the evidence that there is new material information that was not available or readily discoverable at the time of the final decision, and it's in the public interest to develop that information. So you would have to conclude the appellant has identified information that wasn't available, wasn't in the record, that would have a material impact upon the board's decision. And that is really the basis for remand, is to put it back to the board for them to consider that additional information, to enter it into the record, and to reconsider the matter. Absent that, the board's opportunity to provide you their justification is in their written decision. And so I don't think you can send it back to say, you know, improve your written decision. They had their opportunity. They made their decision. They provide the justification in their recent statement. So I would say remand would be appropriate if the appellant has shown to you, demonstrated to you tonight, you know, beyond the preponderance of the evidence, that there's new information needs to be developed and entered into the record that was not available at that time.
Sandra, follow up.
So a follow-up on that, earlier, I believe Rusty gave his definition of what harmony is. I would like to know if the board agrees with that definition. I would think that could be new. I don't know. It didn't come up before, as far as I know.
Usually it's new material facts, new material information, not necessarily the applicant's opinion of what that means.
So since I've got it handy and just so we're staying grounded, so the Board of Adjustment in the relevant criteria and standards, item number 2 says the character of the proposed use will be in harmony with the neighborhood and surrounding land uses. And then here's the blurb we have, of which staff worked with Board of Adjustment to provide. So there was a substantial amount of public testimony in opposition to the conditional use permit, which indicated that granting of the conditional use permit would not be in harmony with the neighborhood and surrounding land uses. Concerns were raised during the public hearing regarding the low-intensity use proposed in the application and the associated potential loss of economic vitality downtown. Concerns were also raised regarding high-intensity traffic patterns during drop-off and pickup times and the impact on downtown traffic patterns. The board found that the proposed educational services were not in harmony with the neighborhood and surrounding land uses. That is what the Board of Adjustment provided with us, is not in harmony and not, yeah, so just to.
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Evan, sure.
Step in here again. Mr. Olps, the applicant, basically verified in his testimony tonight something that I found made this decision difficult for the Board of Adjustment, and that is coming forward with half-baked ideas and loose attention to detail. So once again, the application as presented didn't rise to the standard needed for the Board of Adjustment to not just assume the worst. Now, tonight he gave testimony suggesting that there will be a mix of retail in there that might ameliorate some of those concerns and things like that. And I would say that if we deny this, that doesn't close that building down. It doesn't prevent him from using it. It doesn't remove, as Councilor Davis might say, his constitutional rights or his land use. It just asks him to come forth with a better proposal. He still owns the building. He can put a lot of things in there by right, maybe competing architectural firm, but right. But the difficulty, I think, comes in the original application and its kind of vague aspects that almost requires the Board of Adjustment to seek out, as in their imagining, what is the worst case scenario. I think the applicant can reapply for a conditional use permit there and get it through the Board of Adjustment by fleshing out some of his intent there. So I agree with the board as presented, the application as presented, and when held up to the ambiance that we're trying to create in downtown Moscow, that this create some concerns, this application. So just wanted to reiterate that.
And Scott, before we go to you, can I ask a follow-up question, Evan? I'm trying to understand the piece about worst case scenario. So can you help me understand, like, there's someone coming and asking for permission to do a thing, and I'm trying to understand, is the worst case scenario concern about them doing the thing that they're saying that they want to do? Like, what do you mean by worst case scenario in this case?
Well, the two things I'll go to. One is, do the proposed activities enhance the ability of our downtown to provide foot traffic that comes with shopping, dining, special events, drinking, and those, which is what we have we've saved this downtown with those sorts of activities. We've saved this downtown over the last 40 years. And so I want to, think that the worst case scenario is then, for lack of other information, is where you've lost most of your retail, you've lost most of your dining, drinking establishments and all that. And we have become a office park or something like that downtown. So like I say, with lack of other information, I think it's proper for the board to consider the worst case scenario, which would be piece by piece, conditional use permit at a time and some permitted uses, that we lose that flavor that we have sought to create through many council sessions and many revisions to the comprehensive plan and lots of debates on that. So I think the difficulty lies there, and I think it's proper, like I say, for them to imagine the worst rather than, as they were asked to do, imagine the best by a couple council members or board members. And I will say that they also, I agree with Sandra, it could be remanded because we could, one, ask for a time limit, because a conditional use permit goes forever with the property. If Mr. Olps sells that property next week and there's a conditional use attached to it, that conditional use stays with it. So part of imagining the worst case scenario is how the next owner of the property uses that permission to create something different than even what Mr. Olps had imagined. So when we go down that rabbit hole, and without specificity that allows the board to condition things with time limits, with types of activities, with noise levels, and like that, I could see the place becoming a 24-hour-a-day bagpipes instructional studio, and I don't think that would be in harmonious with the downtown. So
that helps.
That's my very short answer.
No, that helps. I will say, like, noise ordinances would still apply, and also there is harmony in bagpipes. I just may not have the ear for it. So I just wanted to add and clarify. So on our land use table, right, permitted use, P, indoor archery range, bowling center, dance hall, fitness center, golf course. I'm sorry, I misspoke, not golf course or country clubs. However, mini golf facilities are permitted, movie theaters, riding stables, which is actually interesting to think about, and stadiums. So, which includes roller rinks, which I would love to have a roller rink downtown. Those are all permitted, which would mean if Rusty shared that if it was a dance hall, Rusty wouldn't be here. So I just want to reiterate, there are permitted uses that are already here if we're talking about concern about more hypothetical, what's the word? Mortgage companies or architecture firms, or in addition to more space that is not retail. There's a litany of things that are not retail that are permitted. So just want to add that. Further deliberation.
Couple of things.
Scott, I'm so sorry. Yes,
I
I
know you're-
interjected and interrupted twice.
It's okay.
So Scott, what do you have?
I think it's interesting that they could have a dance hall, but you just can't teach the kids to dance.
Footloose in an alternate world. Yeah.
I mean, isn't that okay? And then Evan, the other question I have is what is something in the CUP that's vague that you're saying they did not provide enough specificity to?
I will allow it. Evan, would you like to respond?
Well, sorry. Cut it.
I am
sorry.
the necktie, not the bottleneck. So necktie, pass off.
Sorry.
You're good. No worries.
Yeah, and part of that is, as I said, moving this on to the next owner of the property and either limiting hours of music instruction or types of special events and hours so that there's knowing what is going to happen in there allows the board to put conditions on it to potentially assuage the problems you might have with the neighbors or with traffic flow or all that. And so that vagueness that I see in here, and that, like I say, the applicant even alludes to and did again tonight, is part of the problem. The other part of the problem is our ordinance and what the Board of Adjustment has to work with. They have these elements to work with that include words like harmony and the neighborhood, and we don't know how big that is. And so I think when they see something that comes through that is not a permitted use, their assumption has to be there's a reason for that not being automatically permitted. And maybe we need to change that ordinance.
And I will add, we have to play by the rules to change the rules. So what we have in front of us is a list of Ps for indoor archery, mini golf, not a country club. And so that is something that, like Evan, if we want to have a conversation about that later, we can, but we have to deal with what has been adopted in front of us. And so follow up, and then Scott, if you have additional follow up.
No, I just think, I mean, we got to give people flexibility in some terms. We can't say this is what you could only do for eternity. Like, and some of these, at this point of his probably business plan, I'm sure they've penciled it out to how it's going to work, but you can't just say this is the only avenue that you can go to. And I know there's a lot of permitted uses that he may be able to do. There are some conditional ones. And I think allowing some of that flexibility downtown, I mean, there's a lot of businesses downtown. And if we're going to base it on the harmony with the neighborhood and surrounding uses, there are a lot of uses downtown that will allow that flexibility. And I think we shouldn't be boxing it in. There are ordinances, city ordinances that he's not going to get away with, that just because he's a CUP doesn't mean it's going to be as loud as he wants to do and have hours all over the line. And if they're kids, it's not like they're going to be out at 5-year-old kids at 2 a.m. in dance class. So, I mean, we try to facilitate as a community things that can make us better. And I just think looking at the reasons of denying on criteria 2, I just don't think that fits with my definition of harmony of downtown, as well as vague as it is. There was one more point. I think on the Board of Adjustment part, if they're going to turn down anything that's a conditional use, I don't see the reason why we'd have a Board of Adjustments if it just gets turned down because it's not a permitted use, right? So they do have some flexibility, and they can use their ability to do the same thing that we're doing and approve it or disapprove it. And they made their decision, and I think it's up to us now to make a decision based on what's been on the record. So,
And so to clarify, this is my first time at the helm, and I really am trying just to keep chiming in with facts and not hot takes. I want to ask a clarifying question here, Evan. So in the staff report and in the application materials, I mean, it clarifies how many students, how many instructors, what time of day, what kind of what number of classrooms will be inside. So I'm having trouble understanding what was still left unsaid, and what would have made it more complete. I guess I'm struggling to understand this.
Well,
Because we're gonna have to, if council chooses to do anything other than sustain or reverse, like that's what we're gonna be asking for. Also, quick sidebar, you are doing great. Great job, everybody. Keep it up. Evan.
In some ways, I see that in the application as a limiting factor for the applicant that actually works to his disservice, because those stated hours and number of classes that someone could come back and challenge the use of that building, it may actually be something that he finds is unacceptable to a potential tenant. And it goes with the property unless the Board of Adjustment puts a condition on it that the conditional use permit would expire with the change of ownership of the building, which is, there's a lot of conditions they can put on. So I think that the nature of the application is the reason why we are having this difficulty. And I don't think that denying it will prevent Mr. Olps from accomplishing a successful use of that building in the future. I just don't think it's going to be as done here. And I'm once again, I'm going back to that. Why is this use conditional? Now, I always want to, and this is the philosopher in me, because I was had a double major in philosophy and math in college, and I don't want to ever tell that to, because it was more than 50 years ago. So it's taken me that long to forget most of that philosophy. But that if you try to make an argument for something by saying, oh, this is a good use, and why it's a good use is I'm going to compare it to all the bad uses that are worse, you're basically admitting that it's a bad use, but it's just not as bad as some others, and therefore it's good. I don't find that's a very potent argument in something like this. So even though we want to talk about riding stables and all the other bad uses that would be permitted, I think it's wrong to go in that direction and say, well, this is a lesser evil. So just in response to your
Yeah.
comments earlier.
Mayor Lewis, may I?
I've got Drew, and then we'll go Sage if that's okay, because Drew's been waiting patiently. Drew.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think these questions are good and I appreciate them. Evan, I don't understand what you're saying at all. To me, you've argued two different ways. And what we have before us tonight is the criteria that we have to make a decision underneath. And so there's a lot of things that have been said that are unclear. Just to be clear, I just don't know where you're going. That being said, the application that's been presented, if we're talking about Board of Adjustments, they had the ability to provide more direction if needed. They had the ability to do that. We did not stop that at one point during this decision. My question is why? Why did they not do that? I'm not going to get that answer tonight, and I probably won't, but that's something that needs to be considered moving forward. If you're gonna make a recommendation, provide more content. We have material before us this evening to make a decision. That is what this body is. That is what we are elected to do. I'm gonna stop talking.
Sage, what would you like to
Yeah,
share?
I guess I'm following Councilor Holmes' train of thought on this, but I'm struggling to find within the set of criteria based on the application and the Board of Adjustments hearing and their deliberation. I'm struggling to find the reason to say this is completely out, it doesn't match the criteria of the, remind me, 7 criteria. Only one was rejected, and it was based on this, harmony thing, being out of harmony. The challenge with that is we don't have much substance on the conversation of lack of harmony based on the Board of Adjustments decision and their deliberation to say, oh, okay, I understand the decision here. The challenge is the absence of that sort of deliberate information backing that rejection. And so I struggle with this in part because there was so much public testimony against, right? And none for. And it's hard to watch a public hearing and see the local community not be in favor, right, of something. But I think based on our job here tonight as a quasi-judicial body and based on the specific text of the criteria and our job here, I'm sort of leaning toward reversing the decision of the Board of Adjustment. And again, that's hard for me to say given the nature of the volume of opposition from members of the community. But again, based on the criteria, that's kind of where I'm leaning at this time. So I think we could continue to go circle this issue of harmony, agreement or not, but I think there is admittedly kind of a system and documentation, issue here that I just find really hard to back in terms of sustaining, making a decision to sustain the decision of the Board of Adjustment. And that's where I'm at.
Sage. Drew.
Madam Mayor, I move that we reverse the decision in whole.
Second.
I've got a motion from Drew and a second from Sage. Further discussion.
Yeah, if I may, the thing that stands out for me is that this proposal stays with the property no matter who owns it and no matter how good we imagine the intentions of the current owner to be. And I think the Board of Adjustment may have failed in some regards. Two, I agree with Councilor Davis. They didn't really flesh out their opposition very well, and that they didn't put any conditions on it because they didn't accept it. I think if it went back to the board with those instructions, and that they would seek information to help them condition it, it would go through. The difficulty I have with all that is we're this far down the path from in a incomplete application, I'll call it. That I think if we turn this down tonight, Mr. Olps can come through with another conditional use permit, flesh it out better. Even the board was having, the Board of Adjustment was having trouble with this, and it'll go through the proper way. I don't want to undermine that standing that the board has and the importance they are to us when they've made a decision, as I say, based on their imagining the worst case scenario, because I think it's proper for them to do that. And I don't want to undermine that by reversing their decision. And because I know that this piece of property will be used in a way that's beneficial to Moscow. It'll be conditioned, the uses will be conditioned in a way that we make sure of that, and that the next application to do that will address some of these very issues that we have.
Thanks, Evan. And so I have a logistical question before we move the vote. And I do want to clarify, there's beautiful things in Title IV which describe what someone appealing a Board of Adjustment ruling can do, and we're going through that right now. And so I don't want to imply that this body hearing that and someone appealing that is anything other than us going through the process that is defined for fair and due process. So, but to your point, Evan, before we go to the vote, is the body able to, and this is a Bill, Mia, I don't know who question, and I know I'm probably breaking all of the Roberts Rules of Order right now, but great. Is this body, in terms of reversing or sustaining a decision in whole or in part, able to place our own restrictions or, I'm sorry, conditions, thank you, on it?
Yes.
Okay. Such as change of ownership. I guess I'm trying to give you an opportunity if you wanted to further discuss that, or well, you know what? We're going to move the vote. We'll go the vote, and if we need to, so.
Say one thing
yes.
before we vote. Looking at most of the comments, I thought in reading through I feel like the board really struggled with conditions, and if they wanted to put conditions, they could have approved it with conditions. Most of the complaints I saw and read about were directly related to a church. And that, I think, when you hear a lot of opposition, but that should be irrelevant and shouldn't even brought up during the hearing. And I feel if that part wasn't even brought up during that, which he was completely open about, then most of our complaints we would not have received. Most of the intent and were buried in that part of it, and I don't think we should even consider that part.
Fair enough.
And they could have put conditions as well as we could.
So what I'll say is, we have a motion and a second. We should move the vote, and if it passes, it fails, we'll go from there. So,
And sorry, may I just add to the discussion one other thing?
Sure.
So With a conditional use permit granted to a property, and it's tied to the property again, just to emphasize, not the owner, that doesn't prevent someone from using that property a permitted way by right, or from applying for a conditional use permit for a different use at a future time, right? Whether it's this owner or a different owner. So I just want to clarify that. I think that's important to understand. You know, some people might assume that once a conditional use permit is approved, that is the eternal use of that property, but that's definitely not the case.
Heard. Okay. Before I give Jennifer an aneurysm and quit and break more Robert or whoever's rules, we've got a motion from Drew and a second from Sage.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
If I may, I'd propose.
Wait, hang on. I've got a motion in a second.
Well, I was going to propose an amendment to it.
Where are my, keep me
So,
honest in my process here.
Council members can move to amend the motion
Okay.
prior to the vote on the motion.
Okay.
And that amendment would be that we limit the duration of this conditional use permit to the ownership of Mr. Olps
In addition to, as a condition of reversing. the
as a
decision of the board.
condition of reversing it.
And do I have to have my motion maker accept this friendly amendment?
Well, you have to have a second of my motion first.
So I think Mr. Olps indicated on the record that the owner is an LLC. He's a managing member, but may not be the sole owner of the property.
And so so you're seeking clarification on the phrasing of change of ownership.
Correct.
Change of ownership.
Right.
So
LLC
just this
within-
LLC, which could be different individuals, could be different managing members in the future. So you're going to tie it to this LLC as the legal
Yep,
owner of the property.
As the owner of this property. As long as they're the owner of this, then the CUP would be valid. But if that ownership changes, then it would not.
I just want to make clear that the council understands that we're limiting ownership to an LLC, that members and managing members can be changed. And it'll still be underneath the ownership of the
Dangerous.
LLC.
Okay. I've got a standing motion. Do I have a second? I'm sorry, on the amendment to the motion?
Not a second, but may I add discussion on that?
Well, let me.
It has to be seconded.
Sorry.
first.
Okay.
Going what? I'm going to give everyone.
You can second
counting-
it for the purpose of discussing it.
I'm giving you 3 seconds to give me a second, somebody. So 3.
I'll second.
All right, second from Sage. So what we have before us is a tiramisu of beautiful things. So
Welcome
we
to
have
government.
and actually, to be honest, this is I enjoy this part. So to clarify, what we have is a motion to reverse the decision in part with the added condition amendment made by Evan for the CUP to be contingent upon the LLC
Mhm.
as it stands. Okay, so we got the second.
Yep.
There's a
Just to clarify,
Yeah, did I get that? I don't think I got that
so
right.
the initial motion was to reverse the decision.
Yes,
And then there's now a motion to amend that motion to have a limitation to the ownership of the LLC as described
the
tonight.
condition.
If I may, yeah, the reason the board didn't put any conditions on it is because they denied it. You can't condition a denial.
Ah.
And so if we're looking at approving it, then I'm suggesting that we put a condition.
Correct.
on
And
that. Right.
understand, just want to make sure the ownership is just a tricky
Yep,
part, just
yep.
to make sure you understand.
So that is what is before us. We can do a little bit of discussion before we go to the vote. And also, mind you, if a motion fails, we can start with a blank sheet of paper and a point. So,
Oh, and the
Oh.
first, Your Honor, sorry. And then
Oh.
the first vote will be on the amendment to the motion, and then there'll be a
Great.
second motion
On
on the motion as amended. to approve it.
tiramisu. Okay, so discussion on the amendment proposed.
Yeah.
Sage.
So the reason I seconded that is not necessarily because I agree with that proposal, but it's more so because I feel it's important to emphasize this in the sake of our discussion. So when a condition such as a time frame or ownership is imposed upon a CUP, the important thing to understand is that that condition has to have substantive reasoning. And so I think, honestly, with this amendment, we fall into the same challenging loop that has been before us tonight, right? Lack of substantive reasoning. frankly, the root reasoning of the appeal from the appellant. And so, yeah, for that reason, I'm even though I seconded this motion, I'm not in favor of it because, again, I think there's lack of substantive reasoning.
Okay, cool. Further discussion on the amendment to, because what we will, when we move the vote, is going to be on the amended proposal to reverse and implement.
Your Honor.
No, it's
No,
first
this
on
vote will
amendment.
be on his proposed amendment to the original motion first.
Thanks. That part.
Amendment only.
Amendment only. All right, any other discussion before we go to vote for amendment only? It's my new band name, Amendment Only. All right, here we go. Amendment only. Drew,
No.
Evan,
Yes.
Sage,
No.
Bryce,
No.
Sandra,
No.
Scott.
Nope.
Okay, that the motion for the amendment addendum has failed. We are back to our original motion.
Correct.
Which was from Drew, seconded by Sage, to reverse the decision of the board. And I can allow discussion if I want it, or we can move the vote, right? I'm looking at my legal consult. Okay, great. Going once, going twice. To restate, the motion before the body, the vote before the body is to reverse the decision of the board. Here we go. Scott.
Aye.
Bryce.
Aye.
Evan.
No.
Sandra.
No.
Sage.
Aye.
Drew.
Aye.
So that motion passes 4-2. And which means this body has voted to reverse the decision of the board. Okay.
And Your Honor, if we can get a motion to direct staff to prepare the reason statement for the council's consideration.
I would entertain a motion to direct staff to prepare a written decision reflecting this motion.
So moved.
Okay, motion from Bryce,
Second.
second from Drew. Does staff have what you need for this?
We need to give it-
Okay, groovy. Further discussion before we go to the vote. Evan,
Aye.
Drew,
Aye.
Bryce,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Sandra,
Aye.
Sage.
Aye.
Okay, groovy. Thank you all for staying with us. I would like to share, so we do have one more item, and I actually would really encourage everyone to stay and hear this item. Chief Dollander's been waiting patiently. I think this is a really important topic to the community. I know it's been a long night. It's 9 o'clock and it could be bedtime. So I don't really want to pause for a recess. If you need to leave, please do so quietly. Thank you for your patience and for engaging in this conversation. But again, I'd really encourage you to stay and listen to what you got promoted. Chief Dollander is here to share with us about the FBI Gem State Crimes Against Children Task Force Memorandum of Understanding and Reimbursement Agreement. And we will forego reports tonight. So this will be the last item on our agenda. Welcome, Chief. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I'll try to be brief. Obviously, we've been here for a bit. So before you tonight is the request for approval to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Just for a little background, you all are aware that back in May 1st, unfortunately, we had to sever our partnership with the Attorney General's Office for the ICAC unit due to, I guess, some restructuring.
Which stands for Internet
Idaho-
Crimes
yeah, I'm
Against
sorry.
Children.
Yeah, there we go with
ICAC.
the abbreviations
We
again,
love it.
right? And I'm not even going to try to abbreviate this one. I'm just going to call it the Gem State Task
We'll
Force.
take it.
So, I think what really summarizes this entire thing is written in the purpose there, and it's literally just to formalize relationships between the participating agencies and to maximize our interagency collaboration. We are already doing this work, and we've been doing it for some time, whether it was with the ICAC unit, with the AG's office. We are currently working with our partners in the Federal Bureau of Investigation on similar work. This just formalizes it and creates that task force so that we can put some, I guess, a little bit more onus on it and some more direct light. And so it says there in the mission as well, it's to provide rapid, proactive, and intelligence-driven investigative response to sexual victimization of children and other crimes against children. And as you all know, our forensic detectives have been working very hard to combat those types of activities. And that's just one in a litany of child-specific type of crimes that this would help us to face or to combat rather. As far as the cost to the city, there really is none. It's quite the beneficial task force. Maybe not as beneficial financially as the previous agreement, but the FBI's would through this agreement allow us to utilize an FBI our own vehicle to help with some of that cost. And then it also would be reimbursing the city for overtime of our task force officers' time utilized for the overtime purposes in the task force itself. So in a nutshell, that's what it is. And I'd be happy to stand for some questions.
Thank you. And I just want to reiterate for, I was glad to see that council for the, would have been Public Works and the Public Works Committee asked to put this on the full agenda. This is as much for everyone here to know. I just also wanted to add, there are real people who vet the tips that are submitted to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So I'm going to use this full audience to remind everyone there are mechanisms for us to activate tools like this to get bad actors and hold them accountable. So Bryce, go for it.
Thank you for being here tonight, Chief. I appreciate it. Of course. And I might be misremembering something here, so I apologize if this is a little bit out of context or maybe not totally accurate, but we did receive at least one, maybe a couple of emails. What is the relationship with this, with regards to our tribal partners in the area? There was a direct reach out as this related to tribal relations.
I'm not particularly well versed in that, but since the FBI is the creator of this task force and they're the ones going out and partnering with agencies, I guess that question would probably lie more with them on who they're looking to partner with. I do know that this is relatively new and they've just started getting partners around the area. I was told the other day that Lewiston Police Department has signed on and they have one affiliate so far, or task force member, I should say. So I'm not entirely sure who they've all talked to.
And I was tip-tapping. It's always better to report something and us find out that it's, and law enforcement look into it and it not be real. So I'm just going to make a plug before I entertain a motion. Report.cybertip.org is the cyber tip line. And again, I've met the people who in Idaho help triage some of those requests. It works, but it only works as well as us looking out for our friends and neighbors. And so anyway, just soapbox, full audience. We love it.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Evan.
Just point of clarification that the chief wasn't available, so this did not appear before
That's
Public
right.
Works. And this is the
Thank
first,
you.
this should come to us.
I believe I had to change it. I became before the administrative committee.
Yes,
Okay.
you
Yes.
you are right. Yep, and you are right. We love this.
I was
We-
supposed to
we
come to
shuffled.
council last weekend and I had a conflict, so I had to switch it.
Yes, so thank you for being here. Good catch.
Or not last week. Yeah.
Yes,
correct.
Sandra.
Would it be okay if I made a motion?
I would love if you feel moved some type of way.
I move we approve the FBI Gem State Crimes Against Children Task Force Memorandum of Understanding and Reimbursement Agreement.
Second.
Motion from Sandra, second from Sage. One more time for the audience. Report.cybertip.org. Take a look. Further discussion before we go to vote. All right, here we go. Sandra.
Aye.
Drew.
Aye.
Evan.
Aye.
Bryce.
Aye.
Sage.
Aye.
And Scott.
Aye.
Thank you. I would like to suggest that we hold reports. I see antsy folks in the audience. And so please save your reports for our next meeting, which will fall on July 6th.
July
But I'm
6th.
going to make two plugs. Juneteenth, we're co-hosting with Pullman from 5 to 7 p.m. in Pullman at the Plaza, Pine Street. Nope. Oh man, I already forgot.
You can look it up, and I think it's at 5.
Thank you. 5 to 7. And also our budget workshop will be in this room on Wednesday, July 8th. It will run from about 8:30 till as long as it takes. We won't record it. We won't stream it, but it is open to the public. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
moved.
Sandra?
Yes, so moved.
Second.
Second from Drew. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks, everybody. We are adjourned.